Happy New Year, people. We are here, December 31st, New Year's Eve. Tomorrow begins a new journey, a new year, and a bunch of new movies. So let's take a look back and talk about the films of 2023 because we got some real good ones this year. We obviously also got some not so good ones, some disappointing films. And if you guys want to see me do a separate video talking about disappointing movies of 2023, maybe I can do that. We'll see. But for now, we're talking about the best. And of course, as always, this is just my personal opinion. This is my personal top 10. You can let me know your own top 10s in the comments below, your favorite movies of the year. Obviously, one of the problems with doing something like this is because, I'm only human. I can't watch every single movie that came out this year. There's still a bunch of films that came out this year that I've heard great things about. Wish I could have watched them, but I just didn't end up having enough time to. But certainly, this past week, since Christmas, most of December I focused on all right, let's watch some Christmas movies, all that stuff. But day after Christmas, I was like, all right, time to strap in. I looked at some of the most popular, most loved films of this year, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try and watch as much of this as I possibly can. And I got a pretty decent chunk marked out there. But I will say, obviously everybody's different. Everybody has their own opinions on movies. Everybody interprets films in different ways. So there's films that people didn't really love that I do love. And then there's films that people did love and were some of the best of the year that I didn't find so special. So I guess we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I do want to start off, I don't usually do honorable mentions, but this one I do want to do for Wonka, not because it's necessarily an honorable mention, but just because I haven't seen it yet, but actually today, the day that you're seeing this video, I'm going to see this in theaters tonight, this afternoon. I'm going to go see Wonka, and I've heard, again, a lot of fantastic things about this movie, and so I feel like, based on everything I've heard, I'm really looking forward to this film. I think I'm really going to like it. So, inevitably, this is just my hypothesis. I think by the time I finish watching the movie, it probably will be in my top 10. But I couldn't include it here because I technically have not seen it yet. But, I'm hopeful that it's going to be real good. And of course, I'll be doing a full review on it probably tomorrow, maybe the day after. We'll have to see on that, but I'm really looking forward to that. So anyway, let's jump into this. At number 10 with Dumb Money. Dumb Money I went and saw in theaters in October, and this was my first experience ever going to the movie theater by myself. And on top of that, there was nobody else in the theater, so I was truly by myself watching this movie, but it was kind of fantastic because this movie is based on a true story of the whole stock market thing and the GameStop fiasco from 2020. And, I didn't know a whole lot about the story, but I really mainly came into this for the cast. I mean, great cast. Paul Dano, Sebastian Stan, Seth Rogen, Pete Davidson. The list just goes on. It's a fantastic cast all around, and a lot of these actors, they're comedians, and you can see that here. It's a hilarious film. It's a really, really funny movie. The soundtrack's great, and even on top of the comedy, it's also a really inspirational film, and I talked about that in my review, and I believe most, if not all of the movies on this list I did reviews for on this channel, so obviously you could go check them out on the Movie Life. Check out my review for Dumb Money. Then we have Past Lives. Now this I don't have a review on the channel for, because this came out back in June or something like that, I think, but I just watched it for the first time a couple days ago, and while I don't love it as much as most people do, I did really enjoy the film because I'm a big romance guy. I'm a hopeless romantic myself. So obviously, you give me a romantic drama like this, I'm going to like it. And while I didn't Well, I did maybe get a little bored with it at times because it's a very slow movie. Uh, Certain scenes, just the dialogue and it's just so powerful. Like there's certain monologues in here that just they're just so good, and the acting, the performances are fantastic. Um, for those who don't know what it's about, basically these two people that you could see on screen here, they're childhood best friends. They're kind of dating as kids. But then one moves away, and now all these years later, they come back into each other's lives. But this woman now is married and has a husband. So how's that gonna play out? Are they gonna get back together? Or is it gonna be like, oh, screw the new husband? But no, it's not. Usually that would be what it would be in usually a rom-com. But here you don't hate the new guy. And he doesn't hate the old guy either. It's so interesting, the dynamics that are here on display. Past Lives, it's a really interesting film. If you like love, if you like romance, I recommend checking it out. It's a pretty emotional film. Coming in at number 8, we have Air. One of the most surprising films of this year for me, because I wasn't really like super looking forward to it. I really didn't even know a whole lot about it, but my parents wanted to go see it, and I was like, okay, sure, why not? And this is the ultimate dad movie of the year. Air is the true story. It's based on the true story of how he got the Air Jordan. And I enjoy this because, I like sports. It's a basketball movie. I played basketball for 7 years, but this focuses more on the business side of things with Nike. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really interesting. I always love kind of business movies like this. Like, I really enjoy The Social Network. This is like the sports version of The Social Network. And it's a movie that's, it's about Michael Jordan, but you never see Michael Jordan's face in this movie. You instead focus on the fantastic performances from Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, both director and star in this. Jason Bateman, Viola Davis, I think I already mentioned. Man, just fantastic. Fantastic cast here. It's funny. Again, the soundtrack is great. That's going to be a really noticeable pattern here in this top 10 video is like, if I like the soundtrack and if I think it's funny, I'm probably going to like the movie. And I really enjoyed Air. Now, coming in at number 7, I believe, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So this, the MCU, they've had their ups and downs recently, but Guardians of the Galaxy never disappoints. James Gunn I'm so glad they rehired him for this film because he just gave this a perfect ending for these characters. Of course, it's fun, it's funny, it's Guardians of the Galaxy again. Fantastic soundtrack, probably one of, if not the best of the franchise, and this one takes a real emotional turn. I mean, all the Guardians films, they're pretty emotional, but this one in particular, man, it's fantastic. You get to see all these characters, the journeys they've gone on. You've grown to love these characters over the past 10-ish years of the MCU. And then you bring in probably one of, if not the best villain of the year here with High Evolutionary. Just so fantastic. Again, going back to the emotion, you got this guy who is terrorizing and abusing and manipulating these animals. Who would have thought that we would cry so much over these little scary CGI creatures? A couple of raccoons, a bunny with like spider legs. Oh, Lila the space otter. Oh man. Yeah, Guardians is great. I love it, and I look forward to seeing more from some of these characters in the MCU. Then we come in at, I think it's number 6. I don't even know the numbers at this point, but Bottoms. Bottoms is one that, I'd heard about it. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Kind of put it off, and then a couple days ago, again, when I was going through like some of the top movies this year, I saw this and I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is streaming on one of the platforms that I have. I can just go and watch this right now. So I did, and I really enjoyed it. It was really a big surprise to me because I love like coming of age movies. I'm not in high school anymore, but I was last year. So this is a movie about high schoolers. It's very different though because it in a way obviously reminds me of classic 80s John Hughes high school movies and everything, but obviously with a modern twist. Because it's about two lesbians that basically start a fight club to lose their virginity, which is an insane pitch, but that's what this movie's about. And despite that sounding ridiculous and it being a hilarious movie, like laugh out loud funny, it's also quite emotional. It's quite heartwarming as well. The relationships and the bonds that form between these people. Let's see, the acting is really great as well. There are some great emotional moments. And also, it's very satirical. This is very much a satire. It kind of makes fun of classic high school coming-of-age movies, but in a way that's playful and, again, hilarious. I really enjoyed it. Now, number 5, and yes, I think I'm back on track with knowing what number we're on. We're on number 5 with Oppenheimer. Now, this is a movie that, if it wasn't involved in the whole Barbenheimer thing, I don't think I would have seen it in theaters. Because you just look at the initial pitch of it, oh, it's a 3-hour movie about the making of the atomic bomb. I thought this was going to be super duper boring. But when you factor in the hugely star-studded cast, like insane cast here, and again with Barbenheimer, I was like, I might as well check it out, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. And it's a huge achievement to Christopher Nolan for taking, again, what could have been a really boring concept, especially a 3-hour movie with what could have been super duper boring, and actually makes it thoroughly entertaining. Getting to explore the life of Robert Oppenheimer was really interesting, and seeing all these characters woven in and out, and the different styles. Obviously, Christopher Nolan, fantastic filmmaker. I enjoyed the black and white versus the color. It was really great, and obviously fantastic performances from Cillian Murphy, from Emily Blunt, from Robert Downey Jr. Everybody here is just firing on all cylinders. I really enjoyed it, and that comes in at number 5 on this list. But number 4 is Poor Things. Emma Stone needs an Oscar for this film. I did a review for this last week, and well, technically 2 weeks ago now at this point. But man, this movie's weird, but weird in a good way. It's half in black and white, half in color. It takes place in this sci-fi world where basically this woman, she commits suicide, and then this mad scientist, played by Willem Dafoe, he comes in, takes her body, takes the brain of a baby, puts it inside the woman's body, resurrects her, and you got a Frankenstein type thing going on here, except you now have a woman with the mind of a child. And the things she goes through here, and learns that just her journey, her emotional journey, is so interesting. Her curiosity is what fuels her, and particularly in a sexual way, because that's a big part of this film. This movie is based on a book, and that's a big part of the book. And there's not a lot of nudity here, but it's necessary for the character, for the story that's taking place. And again, Emma Stone is just fantastic here. The vulnerability, how brave you have to be to do a role like this, how creative you have to be, not only with the nudity, but with the way she walks and talks in the beginning. And there's a dance scene with her and Mark Ruffalo, which, again, is so weird, but it works so well. And I watched an interview, separate interviews between Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo when they did their Actors on Actors with Variety, both talking about how a lot of this was improvised, particularly that dance scene. A lot is improvised. They spent weeks rehearsing, just playing theater games, which I think is so much fun because I'm a theater guy myself. Theater games are great. So I think that really came across. And man, everybody here is just fantastic. It's a great movie, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. But what I recommend even more is Barbie. Barbie is, man, this is probably the biggest pop culture phenomenon of 2023. Again, what a huge surprise. I mean, I was looking forward to it and everything. I watched the first trailer and I was like, oh, this actually looks like a lot of fun. I think this could be a good movie. To then ending up watching it twice in theaters, which before this year, I'd never seen a single film more than once in theaters. I saw this movie twice. And it was even better the second time. Yes, it's a very political, feminism-filled film, but it's presented in such a brilliant way. The script here, the screenplay, is just so beautifully written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Greta Gerwig's direction here is fantastic. Margot Robbie is great as Barbie, but obviously we all know the highlight of the film is Ryan Gosling as Ken. You know, there's some Oscar buzz for him, Best Supporting Actor. He's fantastic. Obviously, he's the one I relate to the most because he's the dude, and he's just like what he goes through here. I know it's supposed to be like kind of metaphor and like the opposite of like, oh, in the real life, women are the Ken and men are the Barbies. But I related to Ken in this movie, and man, I'm Just Ken. What a fantastic song. Literally, since this movie, this has changed my life. Half my personality is now Ken. I just literally walk around telling people, I'm just Ken. And I'm enough. I am Kenuff. Like, this movie did something to me, and it was beautiful. Now, oh, man, probably the movie I recommend the most out of this whole year, which is still playing in theaters because it just came out, is the Ironclaw. My number 2 on this list. Wow. Another huge surprise for me because I'd heard great things about it, but up until December, I hadn't heard really anything about it. I don't know if I really even... I remember like we saw first look photos at this film, and I was like, oh, Zac Efron, what happened to you? But man, his physical transformation here is really insane. And like insane. He looks like John Cena and He-Man had a baby. And a little bit like Shrek in the second movie when he turned into a human. It was weird, but it worked here because this is a movie based on a true story. It's a wrestling movie about the Von Erich family, one of the greatest families in wrestling history, but also one of the most tragic families in history. Man, this movie, it really builds you up. The first, I don't know, half, maybe, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour really builds you up on this family, really gets you going on a high, makes you happy and everything. And then the very next scene, like, one thing you know, you're at a wedding, you're doing a line dance to Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and the next thing you know, boom, death. Things happen, and things go downhill fast. It's like hit after hit, and it's so insane to think that this is based on a true story. It's just such tragedy for this family. Really, if curses are real, this is the best example of it. Because, man, the Von Erich family, they are cursed. Because things did not go well for them. But everything is handled here so well. And, again, it's so tragic. But the way they build it up, they really get you invested in these characters and these people. And, man, the performances. Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, Holt McCallany. Zac Efron delivers an Oscar-worthy performance here. Whoever would have thought the guy from High School Musical would ever deserve an Oscar, but boy, he does right here. It's fantastic. It really is. And again, the soundtrack's pretty great. But yeah, here we go. Now, like I said before, before this year, I had never seen a film more than once in theaters. Now, this year, obviously I saw Barbie twice, but this next film, this final film, I saw a whopping 3 different times in theaters. That was a pretty big deal for me. My favorite movie of the year is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And That's not just because I'm a Spider-Man fan. I mean, yeah, I am a pretty big, insane Spider-Man fan, but this movie just is so good on so many levels. It is kind of neck and neck with Into the Spider-Verse, of course, from 2018. That won Best Animated Feature from that year, but Across the Spider-Verse is almost deeper on a level. I do think this is the better film. It's, it's a sequel, it's bigger, it's better. We introduce new characters like Spider-Man 2099 and Spider-Punk, and you bring back all the characters you love from the first film. Gwen now comes into sort of a co-lead role here. And there's great stuff for comic book fans. There's great references, there's cameos. The whole canon events thing has become not only a thing with Spider-Man fans, but I've seen random people on TikTok bringing it up. My girlfriend, who hasn't seen this movie, one day was like, oh, it's a canon event. I'm like, how do you even know what that is? It's a cultural phenomenon like Barbie was. And the multiverse logic here, the animation, people, that is the highlight of this film and this franchise. The animation is just a work of art. It's really astounding what they do with the animation here. All the different universes and their different animation styles. The emotion is here. It's very much a part one of part two, but this film stands alone as just a great Spider-Man movie and probably the best Spider-Man movie of all time so far. I cannot wait for Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. But there we have it, people. The top 10 films of 2023 for the movie life. That is my personal ranking, my personal list. Again, like I said, as always, put your own rankings in the comments below. Any movies that I had on here that you agree need to be in the top 10. Any movies I left off that you think should have been here as well. 2023 was a great year for films. A lot of great performances. I'm looking forward to the Oscars. Of course, I'll be doing videos on that. But guys, that is it for 2023. I'll see you next year in 2024. Again, literally tomorrow, I'll be doing my review for Wonka. I'm so excited for that film. But for now, people, thanks for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so keep it to date on everything goes on in the movie life.